Do you know how much you spend each month? If your income stopped tomorrow, how many years would your current plan actually last? What's your plan if you end up in a long-term care facility? These are questions most people ignore until after they retire, leading to years of uncertainty, which breeds stress. In today's episode, we'll be breaking down my top 5 things to consider before you retire. There is a massive difference between being well off and being retirement ready. Retirement isn't a single event, it's a fundamental shift in how you manage your money, your taxes, and your time. In past episodes, we talked about eliminating stress and finding more ways to fill your joy cup. On today's episode, we'll be covering topics that can go a long way in helping you live a less stressful retirement. Now, let's get started. Number one on the list is to track and know your expenses. Now, this sounds simple, but here's the reality. Most people have no idea what they actually spend. They know the big bills, but they don't account for the miscellaneous items, those small recurring lifestyle costs that add up to thousands every year. Before you flip the switch, you have to track and know your expenses, not just a guess, not a ballpark figure, actual data. You cannot build a sustainable retirement plan if the math you're using for the spending is a mystery. The first action item, once you have that data, clean up the debt. Think of debt as a burden on your retirement. If you enter retirement with a mortgage or high interest payments, you're starting every month in a hole. You're forcing your investment portfolio to work overtime just to cover that burden. By eliminating debt before retirement, you drastically reduce the amount of money your portfolio needs to generate every month, which gives you massive breathing room when the market gets bumpy. Now, there's a tendency here when you think about expenses to immediately enter the 1 month to 1 year mindset. After all, for most, their expenses are not front of mind. While I suggest starting with the shorter term needs, I eventually want you thinking further out. What bigger expenses do you envision needing 5, 10, and 15 years down the road? Maybe it's a new car. Maybe it's an anniversary trip. Maybe it's more of a necessity like upgrading your HVAC unit. When going from working to retirement, the expenses don't just disappear. They just take a different shape. Remember that in retirement, every day feels like a Saturday. If you're like me, Saturdays can oftentimes be the most expensive day of the week. Once you flip that retirement switch, you're gaining around 2,000 hours of free time every single year. If you haven't tracked your spending and planned for what it costs to fill those hours, your retirement plan looks a lot more like a guess. So once we have an honest, clear view of what your expenses look like, we need to determine how we cover them, which leads me to number 2, your income plan. The starting point for any successful strategy is acknowledging your secure income. Before we look at your investments, we have to identify the bedrock. We're talking about things like Social Security, and if you're among the few who still have one, a pension. These are the guaranteed checks that hit your bank account regardless of what's happening in the stock market. Why do we start there? Because once we define your secure income, we can accurately identify exactly what your portfolio need looks like. If you need $8,000 a month to live your life, and your Social Security and pension provide $5,000, we now know your portfolio has a job to provide that remaining $3,000. Now, this is where some people tend to get tripped up, especially if they're retiring earlier than 65. There's a massive psychological pressure here to start your secure income, whether that's a pension or Social Security, for the sole purpose of taking pressure off of your investments. It's hard to watch your portfolio balance go down when you aren't adding to it anymore, and that monthly check feels like a safety net. But what a lot of people don't realize is that every single month you delay Social Security, the benefit amount goes up. This isn't just a feeling, it's a math problem. We have to look at what provides you the most security when you need it the most. For most people, that's later on in life when inflation has eroded their purchasing power. Don't trade a permanently higher inflation protected check later just for a little bit of comfort today. Your pension also comes down to math. You want your advisor to complete a pension analysis, which looks at the monthly payment and lump sum and determines what your rate of return must be for the lump sum to be the better route. Whatever is left over beyond those secure sources is what we call your variable income need. This is the money we pull from your retirement assets that you saved into. It's variable because the distribution strategy is dependent on how the market performs. Think of your variable income like a thermostat rather than a light switch. In your working years, you would have turned the savings switch on. In retirement, your variable income stream tends to ebb and flow like the temperature on your thermostat. If the market is red hot, it's easy to take a little more. If it's a bad year or two, it's advantageous to take a little less from those assets to allow them time to recover. Now, even the most flexible income plan can be completely derailed by a cost that most people don't see coming until it's too late. Which brings us to number 3, your health. Now, this is one of the more overlooked parts of the switch because we tend to lump it all under one umbrella: health insurance. But in a truly successful plan, you have to distinguish between your health insurance and your actual health. Think of it this way: health insurance is a financial contract. Its job is to protect your wallet against the devastating costs of a medical event after it happens. Your actual health, on the other hand, is your biological armor. Its job is to protect you from those events from ever happening in the first place. Insurance protects your assets. Your health protects your life. Now, from a tactical standpoint, we have to navigate both of them. On the insurance side, if you're retiring at 65 or later, you're utilizing Medicare. If you retire before then, you're likely navigating the health insurance marketplace or COBRA. I always recommend talking to a health insurance agent to choose the right coverage prior to Medicare. A good advisor here should be able to explain and navigate, but the agent can find you the exact plan that fits your needs. At Landing Point, we help line our clients up with trusted agents to get them protected. For your general health, the tactical plan has a lot to do with how you spend your time. For this, I like to encourage a really good reflection question to ask yourself. Did my time spent this week help me remain physically active, mentally sound, and socially connected? Each of these areas is key to living a long, fulfilling life. If the answer is no, then no amount of money in your 401k is going to make up for that deficit. The goal isn't just to have a card in your wallet that pays the doctor. It's to have a lifestyle that keeps you out of the doctor's office for as long as possible. Moving on to number 4, your plan for taxes. Here's a reality check. For most people, taxes are the single biggest expense they will face over the course of their entire life. But in retirement, a common tax mistake I see people make is not looking far enough ahead. The typical focus is on this year's tax return and trying to lower it as best you can. This mindset ignores the tax hikes that accompany required minimum distributions down the road. For a lot of our clients, we do what's called a lifetime tax forecast, as it allows us to estimate every tax payment you will make over the rest of your life. Oftentimes, we look at that forecast, we're able to identify opportunities to lower that lifetime tax amount. Making sure you're looking long-term for taxes is the best way to keep more of what you have. If you're planning to leave money to your children or grandchildren, tax planning isn't just a strategy, it's a responsibility. If you don't have a long-term tax plan, you aren't just leaving them an inheritance. You're leaving them a tax bill that could erode what you worked so hard to give them. Don't let taxes play a role in your legacy. Now, once we have a plan in place for your expenses, your income, your health, and your future taxes, we have to make sure the whole thing actually holds up when life gets messy. Which brings us to our final move: stress testing the plan. A plan that only works when the market is up is not really a plan. It's a gamble. Here are 3 major variables that I want you to pressure test. The first one is market volatility. What happens if the market drops 20% in the very first year of you no longer working? We call this the sequence of returns risk. And if you haven't modeled it, a single year can break a 30-year retirement pretty quick. Number 2 is inflation. Now, we have all seen how the cost of living can spike. Go back to 2022 when inflation reached 9%. I can almost guarantee you that 9% inflation was not part of your advisor's plan. But hopefully, he stress tested it and made sure that even with an outlier year like 2022, that you and your future are still secure. The third variable is long-term care. This is the what if no one wants to talk about. If you or your spouse requires professional care for 3 years, does the plan survive? Or does it deplete the legacy you wanted to leave behind? We run these tests so that when the world gets messy, and it usually does, you don't have to panic. You've already seen how your plan survives, and so you're able to shift your focus back to where we want it, which is on you living a joy-filled life. As always, I cannot stress enough how working with a good, comprehensive financial planner can greatly impact your entire well-being. Imagine how nerve-wracking it would be if you changed your own oil, put on your own new tires, and swapped out your own brake pads, and then went on a 30-year road trip. You wouldn't do it. You'd want to know that the machine carrying you was built and maintained by a professional so you could actually enjoy the scenery. Retirement for most is a 20 to 30 year journey. Don't leave the mechanics of it to chance. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you like what you heard, please give us a like and a follow or subscribe to the page. If you have questions, you can do that at our website, landingpointfinancialgroup.com, or just comment directly on this video. Thank you for listening. I'm Garrett Borbina, and this is the Retirement Switch.